Alright, so this is where we left off in the previous lesson or in part 1. So continuing from there, now that we have a general understanding of how the node structure works and how you merge things together and how you can also sort of insert nodes in the middle of a workflow, let's make something. So what I want to make is something very simple, but it will help us understand how you think from a Houdini standpoint. So what I'm going to make is a very simple table. So first we'll just make it very randomly, like the way you would make it in most softwares. Okay, so I'm going to take a box. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to make a table, like this. Like it's a box and then it has like 4 legs. Okay, like that's basically what we have. So nothing too fancy, like this is like the simplest thing that you can make. Okay, so what you want to do is like, let's say this will be my tabletop, okay, or let's say this will be my leg. Okay, so I'm just going to take this and I'll just modify the sides. So if you keep shift press, it sort of squeezes from both sides, like catch the red, dot over there. And then I'll also sort of just move it up. Okay, hold on. Yeah, just like catch it from here and then we'll just move it up there. Okay, and then I can pick here and move it up. So that's the leg. And then I just want to move it. So I can take this and I can move it. Let's say I'll move it like here. And then we'll do a Control C, Control V. And I'll move it to like 4 corners. So 1, 2, and then like 3 and 4. And then we'll have to merge all of these together to see them. So take a merge. And so I can merge all of these together. You can also select all of them and simultaneously plug them in. So select all of them, click on the dot and click here. And that will merge everything together. Okay. And then I want another box, which will be my tabletop. And this again, I'll just click on the blue box, let the pink remain here. Like if you click on both, then you don't have a reference anymore. So keep the pink over there. Okay. And I'll sort of squash it in, move it like that, and just shift and drag. Yeah, I think I've moved it slightly off, but okay, let's just do that. Okay, so this is technically how we would go about. We'd be a little more numerically precise, but we can just sort of, take this and move it on top. And that's normally how you would go about, and then merge it into the same node. If you don't want to do that, you can take multiple merge nodes. Like let's say this is just for legs. So I can double click here and I can call it legs. Okay. And then I can take another merge, and merge it here. And there you go, there's my table. Now, the problem with something like this is there's no real problem, it works. It's the table that we wanted. But the problem is from a Houdini standpoint and from a procedural standpoint, making changes to this is a nightmare, right? Like if you want to move, if you want to adjust the length and width of the table, it's a ridiculous way to do it because you'd have to come in here, you have to select each leg and sort of, move it in here and, see which one is which, and then be able to sort of adjust it. And then if I want to adjust that, then I'll have to again, come in here and, make changes to that. So this is fine. It works, but it's not the smartest way to work in Houdini, and making changes again would be very, very complicated. So what you want to do instead is you want to sort of sit down and think it out first. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to think how we can build a table that will work parametrically. Okay. Which means that I can, if I modify just a couple of minor parameters, I can, adjust the table any which way I want to. So what we'll do is I'm going to come, let's take a look at the table. Okay. And what do we want to do? So we have 3 things that we might want to control. Okay, let's just give this a little bit of thickness like that. Okay, so what we want is, the first thing is the length and width of the table. So we have the length of the table and the width of the table. Then the second, then we have is the height of the table or the height of the legs. And then lastly, as a fairly minor parameter, we would have the height of the tabletop. Okay. But the main three things we want to control is once we decide the length and the width, we can roughly say that is where we want the legs to come in. And then why do we need the height? Is because the height of the legs is roughly where you want the tabletop to come. And the tabletop is going to be like, just to sort of do it mathematically, will be slightly bigger than the length and width of the table. Okay, so if you say the length and width plus say 0.2. Okay, so in each direction it is sort of increasing by 0.2. So if we can build it this way, what you end up getting is a table that we can control parametrically without too many issues. So the one thing that we are going to learn in this lesson, beyond how to think about it this way, is something called channel referencing. So channel referencing is essentially connecting one parameter to another parameter. Like all softwares have this. Okay, like if you want one parameter, like let's say you want the height of the box to drive the radius of a sphere, then that is basically channel referencing. Okay, so what we want here is we want the height of the legs to control where the tabletop will be. Okay, so we are saying like move up the tabletop based on the height of the leg. So let's say this is my tabletop. And then we're saying whatever is the height of the leg, that is how much you want to move it up. So it'll come up to that level. So I'm hoping this is clear, but when we do it, you'll kind of understand. So let's come in here and we're going to get rid of this because this is stupid. So the first thing we want is, we don't want to start off with a box. Let me just do one thing. I'm going to hide the camera because it keeps sort of focusing there. Okay, so because what we want to initially is we just want to define the length and width. Okay, so I'm going to start off with a grid. Okay, so just take a grid from, again, a max standpoint, this is the plane. So, but yeah, it's just a flat plane. Okay, so we're going to take the grid. I don't want any rows or columns. So it will be 2 by 2. Don't go down to 1 by 1. It'll just, everything will disappear. So the minimum is 2 by 2. And the size will be 1 by 1. Okay. Now what we want to do is, this is actually a very old lesson. I'm just sort of recreating that old lesson. Okay, so what I want to do is, we don't want to control the size here. You can control the size there as well. But what I would like is, if you want a little bit of independence, we'll take a transform node. Okay, and this will be the, let's call it the table size. Okay, let's plug this in. And the scaling that we're doing here is technically the size of your object, okay, or your size of your table. So let's make it say 1.5 by 1. Okay, so let's do that. So we've defined the size of our table. The next thing we want to do is we want to define the legs. Okay, so let's do one thing. Let's take a simple line tool. So line tool just creates a line. Okay, nothing too fancy. It just creates a line. And what we want to do is we want to copy, so this line will be our legs, okay, and we want to like place these at each corner. So what happens is, if they are sort of placed at each corner, if we adjust the table size, the legs will automatically sort of move in and out. So the way to do that is you get a node called copy to points. So like the node we're going to use is called, so what copy to points does is it requires two inputs. One is the base geometry, and then one is what do you want to scatter it on. So the scatter geometry is basically like if you have a grid which has 4 points, then it basically scatters 2 vertices. Okay, it's sort of like the cloner from MoGraph, but like a clone to objects. But you don't have any other options except like whatever vertices are coming in, it will just copy to those 4 vertices. So what you do is you take a copy. So if you type copy, you'll get 3 of them. What you want is called copy to points. So click copy to points. And then if you click here, see it says target points to copy to, and it says primitives to copy. So the primitive to copy is the line, but we also want another transform in here to control the, let's call it leg height. Okay. And so this comes in here and this comes in there. Now you're going to face one problem, which is because of the normals that are here, it tends to rotate 90 degrees. Okay, Houdini will always do that. Okay, so what you need to do is when you come in here and you switch this on, you'll see like they've all rotated in that direction. What you want to do is you want to come to the leg height and rotate it in X, you want to rotate it 90. See, there you go. That makes it work. And what now you are doing is the uniform scale here is the height of my legs. So the nice thing is that this is at 1. So you know, like if it's 0.5, then that's the height of my legs. Okay. So this is, now what you've done is if I adjust, see, you built the basic structure of your table. Okay, which is when I move this or when I adjust it around, you can adjust, that. Okay, now as a final thing, we're going to use the same thing to generate the tabletop, but now that has to be moved to this height, like it should be at this level. Okay, and that is where our channel referencing comes in. So we're going to take another transform, plug in the table size because we're just going to modify that table size. Okay, so firstly, let's just make it slightly bigger. So we're just going to scale it up by 1.1 in both. Yeah, so it's like slightly bigger. Okay. Or let's make it 1.2. You can press tab to go between multiple. That's very much like an Excel sheet. Okay, so let's just call it as tabletop move. And what we want to do is we want to take the leg height, which is our uniform scale here. Okay, this is going to be my leg height. Is we right click here, we say copy parameter. We come to the tabletop move. We want to adjust the y-axis. Right click and paste relative reference. And what it does is fairly simple. Like it says channel. Okay, because this is a channel. And then it is just putting in the path. So what you've done is you've taken like the .. slash is you're in this node itself. The thing you've taken is leg height, like that is the node, and the scale is the parameter name. So if you click your mouse here, you'll see see this parameter is called scale. Like if you can read it, like just below uniform scale, it says parameter is called scale. Okay, and that's what we've done. So now if we merge these two things together, so if I take this guy and I merge it here, and there you go, there's my table. So the nice thing is if I just take the table size and I adjust it bigger or smaller, you have a fully functional table. If I take the leg height and move it up, the table moves up and down. And as a final thing, I would like to give the table a little bit of thickness and also give the legs a little bit of thickness. So we're going to look at two more nodes. The first one is called polywire, which is again from a Mac standpoint, it's called renderable spline, which is you're just taking a spline and giving it thickness. So that's basically what polywire does. And we'll also do a bit of a poly extrude, which is just a face extrude. So again, like the point is I'm going through a few nodes here, but I'm expecting that you know how to work in a general 3D software. As we do more complex projects, we'll go through more parameters of those nodes. Okay. But right now I just want to keep it basic. So we just using them at the most basic level. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take a polywire. So just type polywire and you'll get this. Okay. And we can drop it in there, like just above the copy to point. So you can drop it here also, like both places will do the same thing, but there you go. So I can define the radius of it. You can define number of divisions to make it round. And then I want to take a poly extrude. So just type POLYEX and there you go, poly extrude. Okay. And then we'll put it below the tabletop. And this will allow me to give a little bit of a height. The only thing is it will be hollow from below. So what you want to do is just come down and say output back, and that will make it thicker. Maybe it should be slightly bigger. So we'll come in here and make it say 1.4. Yeah, okay, that's good. So we did one bit of channel referencing, so nothing very complicated, like just right click copy and right click paste. But what you've managed to do now is, by trying to think it through a little bit, you have effectively, like, all of this is controlled from two places. Like you have the grid, or actually you have like the table size and you have the leg height. So if I modify the table size, you can adjust the length and width of the table. If you modify the height, you can adjust the entire height of the table. And then this is just minor, like, you want to give it some thickness. Okay, so this is a relatively shorter lesson, like pretty short actually. But the point being, you need to just sort of, as I said, you need to sort of rewire your thinking a little bit as to when you're going to make anything in Houdini. Here's the fun part. If you didn't notice, we never touched anything in the viewport. Like we didn't move anything, we didn't do anything at all. Like all of it is just done in the nodal area and modifying parameters. So the point here is, whenever you're going to try and make anything, the idea always is to try and break it down at a parametric level and then see if you can structure it that way. Okay, so once you're able to structure it that way, it will take a little longer to make because you have to think it out. But once you've made it, you can make infinite number of changes to it. And so the next time if you want to put a table in your scene, you can just copy paste this node structure in there and just modify 2 parameters or 3 parameters and you're done. So that is the overall advantage of a structure like this, okay, of the overall procedural system, and just, like slowing down and thinking it through, which is what takes time, right? If you're very new to Houdini, trying to figure out this and trying to figure it out, like, oh, I need to make a sofa. Okay, now rather than just taking and making a sofa, you try to go, okay, how would I try to make it that it remains more live, so that if I want to make changes later, or if the client asks for changes later, it is easy to do, rather than just, because the previous method that we saw, which is just, normally how you do it, would be very painstaking. Like every time you need to make changes, okay, move the table up, then move the box, move the legs up, and then, okay, we need to adjust length and width. So select these 2 boxes, move them to the left, select these 2, move them to the right. You continuously sort of keep going through that. Here, it's much more simpler, but it takes a little bit of thinking to do that. So yeah, so that's basically it. Okay, so this is effectively what I wanted to make. Okay, and I am hoping this was clear. So okay, so as I don't usually do this, but if you are following this, and I might give assignments every now and then, not that I'm going to come around and check it, but if you want to sort of just push this a little further, you can try to make a chair. Like we've made a table, you can try to use a little bit of the gray matter that you have and see if you can make a chair instead of just a table. Okay, if you can email it to me, and that will be cool, or not. Whatever is preferable. Like there's no pressure here. I don't really want you to do an assignment because I'm sure most of you are busy with jobs and everything. Okay, but yeah, if you want to, like, you'll have a week, because I'll upload this on Saturday, and then you'll have till next Saturday to figure out how to do something else. But yeah, so again, I'm hoping this was clear, and if you have any problems with this lesson, you can write me an email or message me on Vimeo or Twitter, whatever is preferable to you. And in the next lesson, we are going to continue with the same table. And what we're going to take a look at is how to turn this into an actual parametric object, which in Houdini is called a digital asset. Okay, so that's what we'll do in the next lesson. But for now, that's basically it.